Well, have a good one, Phil. Thank you so much. Now, the Commission for the Promotion and the Protection of the Rights of Cultural, Religious and Linguistic Communities, or the CRL, has launched an inquiry into access to burial land and ancestral graves. The Commission says it's received many complaints on denial of right of access to graves, especially on farms and other private properties. The Commission will start consultations nationally and also draw up a report with some recommendations by the end of July. Joining us now is the Chairperson of the Commission, Mkhwanazi Xaluva. Mkhwanazi, good morning to you. Thank you so much for coming through.
Good morning and thanks for having us.
Thank you so much indeed. Now, as I mentioned on my introduction, that the inquiry will be looking at a whole range of issues, ancestral, burial land and so on. And talk to us about the details of this inquiry.
The inquiry, we started it because we are receiving tons of complaints. Part of it is how maybe local government is dealing with the issue of reuse of graves when other people are buried on others, even when they are not relatives. Part of it is people who are having problems accessing ancestral graves on farms. We appreciate the issue of safety and the issue of criminality in terms of farms, but we feel there needs to be a middle road. And also the desecration of graves, the demolition of graves, when maybe, government wants to build malls and create jobs and then, they demolish graves and people feel their cultural and religious rights are being violated.
A very sensitive issue it is, Mamtogo, because to us as Africans, cemeteries are not just a place, but it's a place with a very significant meaning.
Exactly. You see, that's why we're saying it's cultural and religious. Because in African religion, for instance, that's more like your church, your mosque. That's where you go to when, you need to do what others do, to pray. And that's where you talk to your ancestors culturally. And so we look at graves as a sacred space, as a holy space that should be treated as such and respected as such.
Yeah, and I would imagine most of the complaints come from your predominantly rural areas, your farms. So how do you deal with such? Because at the end of the day, a farm is a private property.
We need to find a mechanism of how this is going to work. Partly because, you find that other people used to live on farms and then they moved away and their parents are buried there, their grandparents are buried there, and they need to have access. So we're looking at issues of how we demarcate those areas, negotiating with the farmers' unions and farmers themselves to say, how do we make this work? Part of what we've discovered is that the level of anger and anxiety in some of the people who have come to us is quite high, because when you want to go and do something in your grandparents' graves and you've been told that you're having all these problems.
Look at what happened. Was it in KZN where a family member was shot?
Yes,
so
because they were trying to bury somebody there. So it's a very highly contested terrain. But as South Africans, we talk about these things and find a middle road. So we're looking at issues of expropriation of land, we're looking at issues of demarcation and access and all those things, and we feel that can be negotiated peacefully.
You've also made mention of local government as an issue here, and it actually reminds me of what happened in eThekwini municipality around back in 2011 when they sort of encouraged community members to recycle graves. So in that particular one, it looks like the issue has not been resolved. 8 years later, what's happening?
The issue has not been resolved. What we want to do with these hearings is to give them one last chance and then go to court. Because it means they are not willing to take any recommendations for us. eThekwini municipality is insisting on reusing graves and putting Mkhwanazi and Kize and Naidu in one grave.
Yeah,
which is so wrong in terms of culture. You can't mix people. We're looking at other examples like in Cape Town where they're negotiating with families themselves and for families to identify a grave where they can then share a space with a grandmother or a father or whatever, but a relative. And we're saying the issue of land is very important. And we're hoping a government will solve the issue of land, because it's at the core of this crisis.
One other sensitive issue, Mam Toko, is that of Ingleba. It's caused a lot of stir, and I know that you had a meeting with some traditional leaders. What are their concerns on this movie? Is it really an issue of misrepresentation of facts versus their reality? What are they complaining about?
Maybe let me first by clarifying that this has nothing to do with sexual orientation. Unfortunately, you know, as issues are reported, then, you know, they go with the popular version. None of the complainants ever touched on issues of sexual orientation. It was how initiation is being presented. It was the language used, the horrible language used in that film is amazing. Because I understand this cause. What I'm hearing is not what the footnotes or whatever is saying. So we feel it's also prejudicial to people who speak a particular language, who have to listen to insults, you know, one after the other, non-stop. Those who don't speak the language might not understand what the fuss is all about. But we feel that, you know, women are being seriously, there's derogatory language about women, and you see, when it's translated, you don't see the problem.
That's true.
So the issue is how initiation is being portrayed. The issue is the issue of Jesus Christ being seen to may have been gay. The issue of Shaka Zulu, who's maybe gay. So those issues, you know, we know the doctrine of Christians is very, you know, it's got its own problems around issues of sexual orientation. And once you start querying whether Jesus Christ was, you know, homosexual or not, then you're getting into a doctrinal issue. And we're glad that they want to take this matter on review. Actually, as the CRL Rights Commission, we're very happy with the current status in terms of how the grading has happened.
So the movie has been taken out of theatre for now?
It's been taken out of the theatre for now.
It's been reviewed. Yeah.
If they're going to court, as the CRL Rights Commission will definitely be friends of the court in this matter, because we feel there needs to be a decision in this country in terms of cultural and religious and linguistic rights versus all the other rights.
Yeah.
There are no rights that trump other rights in the Constitution. Everything is in the Bill of Rights, and we're hoping the Constitutional Court will give clarity on these issues.
And we've also seen the Film and Publication Board Appeal Tribunal overturning the age restriction on this very same film. And some people are saying the decision was too harsh.
We're part of the complainants. We also had complainants, you know, like Contralesa, Boyenman Foundation, and a whole lot of others like Ubuhle Benguqe, who are also saying, this is not the stuff we want our children to watch. The Constitution says we are a child until we are 18 years old. So if a 16-year-old is supposedly ready to watch such, we feel they're too young to understand such complex issues.
All right, Mam Toko, we'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for coming through to Mam Toko Mkhwanazi Xaluva from the Commission for the Promotion and Protection of the Rights of Cultural, Religious and Linguistic Communities, talking to us about the Commission's inquiry that will, the recommendations thereof will be out by the end of July. We're taking a quick ad break here on Morning Live. One more item before we say goodbye. Don't go away.